Your Honor, opposing counsel, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, may it please the court. This is a case about who watches the watchmen, who cares about those who care for us. Robert Brown was a man in need of rescue, and Jan Brennan risked his life and lost his life in the process of rescuing him. Now you're going to hear today that January 14th of 2008 started off like any other day for Jan Brennan. He woke up that morning, he went down to the breakfast table, he had his bowl of Fruit Loops with his daughter Nancy, he got ready for work, and he went off, kissed his wife, Carrie goodbye, and he went off with his day. Little would Nancy or Carrie know they would never see Jan again. He went off to work that day as a firefighter for the Foothills County Firefighters Department. And he went off and he started to go out to work, and he did his job. Until around 8:30, he was called to the Sierra Mountains when a call that there was an accident at the scene. He arrived to the scene and saw a car on the side of the road. There was no one in it. So he looked around to see if anyone was there. He heard shouting from down the mountain. Someone was down there. Someone needed help. Someone needed to be rescued. So Jan Brennan, knowing that someone was in trouble, decided that he had to go rescue them because it was his job and was who he was. He felt a moral obligation to do it. He started to go down that area to find that voice, to rescue that person. And on his way to rescue the defendant, he lost his footing and he fell to his death. And you're going to hear today that the story doesn't start with Jan Brennan going out to rescue the defendant. The story starts with the defendant's actions that day. The defendant went out to climb a mountain, the Sierra Mountains. And you're going to hear today that the defendant did so without the equipment necessary, without the training necessary. He was a novice climber. And you're going to hear today and see there was a sign that said climbing that mountain is dangerous and that he shouldn't do it. He decided to do it anyway. He decided that's what he wanted to do. He was an adventurer. So he went out to climb that mountain. You're going to hear he didn't have the equipment. He didn't have the ropes. He didn't have the shackles. He didn't have the boots. So he went down Sierra Mountain to climb. And he injured himself trying to make that climb. That was the defendant that Jan Brennan was trying to save that day. You're going to hear from a number of people. You're going to hear from T.J. Wilson. He was Mr. Brennan's partner on that day. He's going to tell you how they heard that shout. They heard someone who was in trouble. And despite the fact that it might have been beyond his duty as far as his job, it was his duty as far as a person. He felt a moral obligation. You're going to hear from Chief Simmons from the fire department, Jan Brennan's chief, who said that despite the fact that the procedures didn't necessarily say that he had to go down that mountain, if one of his guys didn't, he wouldn't be happy with it. Most importantly, I want you to listen when Carrie Brennan comes up today and she tells you about what it was like having her husband, the relationship they had, the relationship he had with Nancy, how he was the only father that Nancy ever knew. I want you to listen as she tells you about her hopes and dreams and wishes that he had about her relationship with her husband that would never come true. I want you to listen when she tells you about all the anniversaries that they're never going to see, about all the vacations that they're never going to take, and about the future that they lost because of the actions of the defendant. At the end of today's trial, I'm going to stand before you again, and I'm going to ask you again, who cares for those who care for us? And I'm going to ask you to rule in favor of the evidence, in favor